It is a great honor and pleasure to be able to introduce this week's special guest expert, and that is Elliot Rowe. On today's Conversations with Cabral, we are speaking with my personal mindset and performance-based coach. As you know by now, if you've been listening to the show, I seek out the very best people in their field, whether it's Dr. Jay Wiles for HRV or specific types of bioregulatory medicine experts. Of course, I met my mentor, Dr. Pete, way back in the day, studied all around the world with the best of the best. Well, I can tell you this, after speaking with many experts in the performance and mindset-based arena, whether it be NLP, hypnotherapy, you name it, I have never come across someone whose work really affected me on a very profound level and helped me with things that I was struggling with to take my mindset to that next level. So we explore much of that on today's show. Elliot Rowe is, again, at the top of his field in terms of mindset, hypnotherapy, NLP, and many other modalities that he helps take people to that next level. So without giving it all away, I hope that you enjoyed today's show. Again, it's a real pleasure to be able to introduce to you my personal coach, and again, many of my coaches that I have on Conversations with Cabral, so that you understand too that I'm always trying to do that work right alongside of you to better my life in any way that I can. And I know that Elliot's wisdom is going to be able to rub off on you today, and hopefully you'll benefit from that as well. Take care, everyone. And of course, let me know what you thought of the show. Feel free to leave a comment for Elliot and I over on Instagram. Just my name, Stephen Cabral, and you'll see a link to Elliot's as well. Take care. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Elliot, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on here today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
I appreciate you spending an hour and a half or so with us today. Really excited to introduce you to our community. I've known you now for, I think it's probably been about a year or so, I believe. And as many people know, I'm inviting on who I consider to be the very best at what they do in the world onto our new Conversations with Cabral. So this is my opportunity to really showcase people who I believe need more notoriety and really deserve more credit than maybe they're getting right now, or they already have a lot of credit. You're well known in this industry, but my goal with having you on especially is to be able to bring what you do more to the mainstream. Like, I want everybody to know what it is that you do and understand it to a deeper level, because it was my hesitation for many years as to the field that you're in that held me back from getting better results in my life. So we'll get into what all of that means in just a moment. But again, I'm really excited for you being on the show here today. Thank you for joining us. And my first question is always this. When people ask you what it is that you do, because there's so many different things, how do you respond to that?
Really what I do is I help high performers reach the next level in their life and career. And I do that through hypnotherapy. So I'm a hypnotherapist who's very, very niched, very specialized in really helping sort of people who are top 10 in the world becoming number one in the world. And that's what I do with pretty much all of my clients.
And I mean, that's a great way to phrase it. That's a great way to really get concise as to what you do. And one of the reasons why, again, I know not everybody will be able to work with you, but the truth is that the things that you do for the high performers that you work with can translate down with anybody in their life. And everybody needs to know this information. I mean, that's the truth. Like, it's out there, but the way that you do it, which we're going to really break down on the show today, it cuts through all of the clutter. Like, I am definitely the type of person who says, like, I don't want to waste all of these precious moments that we have in the day. That's how I look at life, is like, I look at life as short because, you know, I have my own story where I didn't think I would get to where I am today in terms of even living this long. And so I've always looked at life as short. So I always look at it as like a second, third, I'm already on my 9th life. So, what do we do here? So this is what I do. I mean, when people ask, I refer to you as my mindset coach. I look at you as the person who helps me get my mind in the right place so that I'm then able to do what it is that I want to do with my life. Meaning, like when I speak with you, I'm not saying, Elliot, how can I improve my health? How can I improve my heart rate variability? How can I breathe better? How can I deliver better on IHP or my courses or whatever it might be? Really, we'll get into what it is. Those are my goals. Your job is to essentially, I would say, help me see my blind spots and also remove and erase a lot of the subconscious blockages that are holding me back from essentially just achieving my potential. I mean, that's really it. And then maybe even helping me explore what my potential is and helping me to believe in myself maybe more than I do right now. Would you say that that's fair?
Oh, completely. So sort of my philosophy is that everyone is holding themselves back in some way or another. If they're not the number one in the world, there's usually some subconscious block that's in the way that is stopping you reaching that point. And my work is really helping people to understand what those subconscious blocks are, where they've come from, and then working through and reframing them so that they're no longer being triggered and they're free to live their full potential. And as I say, because I'm fortunate enough to be working with very interesting people with very high potential, as we unlock those blocks, we can see quite amazing things happen in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing too is, would you say that everyone, no matter who they are, comes with blockages, like comes with these subconscious beliefs that are holding them back or that have gotten them to where they are in their life right now, even if their life is good, but it could be better?
Yeah. So, anyone who's coming to me is coming to me because they believe they can improve in some way. So there is obviously that factor to it. But what I find is that everyone has levels in their mind of success that they feel comfortable with. And it's like a wealth thermostat, especially if we're talking about finances first. So for some people, that might be $50,000 a year. For some people, the pressure might come on $100,000, $200,000, $1 million, $5 million. But oftentimes people are hitting against this barrier, and then it will keep drawing them back to the same level year after year. When, if they followed logic, there should be a gradual improvement at least in what they're doing because they're becoming better at what they do. Certainly for those who are self-employed. But much of the time, I'm just seeing this constant bashing against a certain level, and there's something there from their past that is teaching them that it's wrong to get past this level in their life. And it's my job to help them understand that, to see where this programming has come from. And then by undoing the program, they can reach the next level. And, typically with people, if your barrier is at 100,000, you're going to get it to 500, something else might come up. 500,000. We might be working through these things again. But everyone seems to have these different models, these programs that are playing that say, I'm good enough for this. And once you reach this, it's very hard to get over it unless you're working with a professional to help you understand why you thought you're only good enough for this level. And then that freedom, can really send people off, into quite exciting places.
Yeah, and we talk about that in terms of the thermostat all the time in when the health-based field. So we want to look at it as, if you can lose 30 pounds and your goal is 60 pounds, and every time you lose 30 pounds, something happens, right? There's not necessarily an excuse, but life gets in the way. Something happens, then you regain all the weight again. And you're never able to get down to that 60 pounds that you want. That is the thermostat effect. You're not necessarily choosing the event that happens. However, it is your subconscious beliefs and thoughts that are allowing that event to come into your life. It does happen. And instead of you looking at it as a temporary obstacle, finding a way around it, you let it set you back again. That's how I look at it in the health field. Body transformation. I talk about the big five, and for me personally, the big five, and I try to share this with people, is body transformation, making sure that you're in good shape to simply take you through this life. It doesn't mean six-pack abs, but it means being in great shape so that this vessel right here stays alive long enough for you to enjoy all the things that it takes to get to that far in life. Meaning, like, it's going to take you some years to get to the place that you want to be. Okay, then when you get there, you'll be a little older. At least this body needs to hold up so you get to enjoy it for many years. So I've got body transformation, I have health, I have career, finances can go with that, spirituality and relationships. And I know one of the reasons, I know many of the reasons I reached out to you were essentially all five. I mean, that has always been a big thing with me, is saying that, yes. So sometimes, okay, body transformation is going well, but relationships not as good. Sometimes career's going well, okay, but now health's not going as well because you're spending more hours, you're not getting as much sleep. So for me, it was always about how far can I take it? Meaning, like, how am I able to get from where I am now to a 10x in all of those different areas of my life? And I think it did start with really looking at, for me, understanding kind of where I came from, my subconscious beliefs, and not a specific goal per se, but being able to unlock a lot of those things that I knew were there that I needed to do some work on. So I think that's a fair way of saying it. Performance coach, mindset coach. What are some other names that people would throw around?
I use predominantly those two, but again, my background is hypnotherapy. That's the modality that I'm using for this. So I'm a performance and mindset coach, but utilizing hypnotherapy as my main modality.
And that's a good point to touch on, because one of the reasons too, I think that I would just never used hypnotherapy before is because all I knew about was stage hypnotherapy, and stage hypnotherapy is basically performance art. I mean, it's not really helping people, I think, get to that next level. And so, that's why agreed. I mean, you are a hypnotist and one of the best, out there, but it's more hypnotherapy. It's using hypnosis as a therapy with regression therapy, with neurolinguistic programming, with other things that you add in. Hypnotherapy might be like the modality, but it's kind of like what we do for integrative health. We're drawing from Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, orthomolecular, all of them. And you're drawing from the other specific psychological based sciences, I think, as well.
Oh, completely. And it's those different pieces of the puzzle that allow us to make these changes. I think the key is, one, I always have to say it, hypnotherapy sessions are nothing like stage hypnosis. So the best way of describing it is much more like guided meditation, which then brings up memories in a way that wouldn't come up in a normal conversation, and allows us to change and reframe those memories so they're no longer triggering big emotions and big blockages in your life. So there's no magic to this process, but it is a changed state that will bring up thoughts and memories in a way that you wouldn't have on a normal daily basis. So I just think it's always worth mentioning that, because people are concerned, I'm going to say sleep and snap my fingers and all sorts of magic. It's unfortunately not a magic show. It's more like a deep, pretty emotional process.
Yeah, and I would say too, at no point have I been hypnotized when we've ever worked together. Meaning, or not the traditional sense. Meaning, I could basically just get up and walk out at any point. Like, it's not like I'm in a state where you have control over my mind. It's more like you work me through a guided meditation almost into a relaxed state with my eyes closed, seated or lying down, and virtually, by the way, for everybody listening out there, so that I am then more relaxed and able to better recall, I would say, memories, et cetera, so that we can work on those. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. So, basically what we're looking for is a deep meditative state. The stuff you see on TV, the stage hypnosis, that isn't what we're looking for. All we're looking for is for you to be in this deeply relaxed state where the subconscious mind has become dominant over the conscious mind. So we're having you visualize things like a very vivid daydream. We'll have you bring up emotions, have you bring up memories in a way that it wouldn't happen in normal conversation. These deep memories, these deep emotions will start to show themselves through this relaxed process, this meditative state or trance state, however you want to call it. But as you say, this isn't like stage hypnosis. This isn't like the stuff you saw on TV. If I asked you to do something you don't want to do, you're not going to do it. There's no power with the hypnotherapist. I'm guiding someone through their own personal process of resolving their own issues. So I'm a guide. I'm not telling them how to be fixed. I'm guiding them through whatever it is that's happened in their life that has created an inaccurate program that's inefficient for their life. So a lot of the time, these programs are created when we're children. They're to protect us. They had a reason for being there when we created them, but the program 5-year-old you makes isn't quite as effective for 35-year-old you, 40-year-old you. And that's the work that we're doing through these sessions.
Yeah, and that's a great point to bring up, is when you're recalling some of those events or memories, whatever it might be, is they did serve you at one point. They most likely kept you safe, or at least tried to keep you safe in terms of mental, physical-based health. And they play on a loop even as an adult, because it doesn't want you to ever fall in a situation where you could then get hurt. But being able to reframe it now as an adult, I think is incredibly helpful. And I think that many different types of therapy and psychology aim at doing this. They're just, some are more effective than others. I mean, that's basically the bottom line, is like, you need to just go back and say, I'm stuck here because of this. This event has nothing to do with this at all. Like, there's no correlation between the two except for the memory that keeps you stuck. And so that's why I just really encourage people to at least just begin to explore these things. And that's why I always want to be open and honest with people. I'm an open book. I'm simply someone that is looking to take their life and my own unique version of how I'm running this journey to the highest level possible. And that doesn't mean, like, there's no certain level of income, there's no certain level of health, there's no certain level of anything that I'm trying to get to specifically, except that, is this my highest potential? That's really it. Like, if I can do better, I want to learn how to do better. I want to learn from you, an expert in this field. What am I missing? That's basically what I say to experts. I had Dr. Jay Wiles on with the heart rate variability. He's a psychologist. He doesn't do anything with hypnotherapy. His is more neurofeedback, biofeedback. I said, what am I missing here? And then he'll say, okay, here's what you're missing, because I have blinders on looking at this way. I've only looked at this way. And when you speak to other people and experts in their field like yourself, they show you, okay, I see what you were doing there, but you missed this and this.
Yeah. Oh, completely. And everyone has these blind spots, myself included. I speak to a hypnotherapist as well. I work on my own stuff, because the truth of it is, if it's a blind spot, it's a blind spot. And it's very difficult to work on the things you're not aware of. The good news is that through these sorts of processes, you can start to almost see what's happening in your life from a third-party perspective. And you can start see your own blind spots coming up, because you're sort of more separate from yourself when you're in that trance state. You can see the mistakes, you can see the programs, and then you can adjust them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you said that you have your own hypnotherapist and do your own sessions, because if you truly believe in what you do, like, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, it makes total sense to me. I am looking for my own doctor. I haven't had my own doctor, someone that I can just get a second opinion on things for. I mean, I've got a great team and I can always talk with my team. And luckily things are good. I'm not saying things aren't good. I'm very happy with where my health is, but I should, everybody should have their own one level up, or a colleague, that's on your level that you can say, hey, what am I missing? Or what do you think I should work on next? And I just think it's so important.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things with coaches is, anyone, I believe, who, is offering a service that's certainly like this. I think a really good question is, what does your self-care routine look like? Mm-hmm. Because, a coach's self-care routine should be pretty robust.
Yes.
In general. And that's sort of my personal belief, and that's what I've been following through for years and years, because like you say, I'm in exactly the same spot. I want to release my full potential, and I have my skill set around it, but I'm also looking for the different areas where I can do better, where I can improve, where I can live my best life. And I think there's quite a few of us in this world where really that's what we're all looking for. The best family life we can have, the best health, the best finances, and that's the sort of path that I'm trying to follow as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Abundance in every area of your life is the goal. And again, your level of abundance should, in any area of those lives, should not be ever compared to someone else's. It's your unique life, meaning like you're not supposed to have the same relationship as friends of yours that you see, or the same health. It's with your body, your health, your mindset, and all of that goes together. So I will definitely get back more into what you do specifically in these sessions. I know that any time that I work with you, mine are going to be unique to me. So I'd like to, of course, hear kind of tips as how it works for other people and helps other people as well. But before we get into that, I always like to start with, a lot of us are in such unique careers. It's like, did you grow up at 5 years old and say, I really want to go to hypnotherapy, when you're 5 years old? I didn't even know what a naturopath was when I was 5 years old, never mind 19 or 20 years old. But what kind of led you to where you are here today?
A fear of flying.
Really?
Bizarrely. So I had a pretty bad fear of flying, to the extent of I wouldn't take long haul flights were terrifying to me. So I'd turned down vacations, going to America and things in the past because I just didn't want to fly on a plane. And then short haul flights, I would take, but it would actually ruin the weeks before, and it would ruin the vacation, because I'd be sort of counting the days until my impending doom. And then I'd go on vacation. I'd spend the vacation worrying about the fact I was going to have to get on a plane to come home. Someone recommended a hypnotherapist, and I went to her. I was pretty skeptical, which is ironic as I've ended up in this business. But in an hour, she managed to resolve my fear of flying, and it completely changed my life. And what was really interesting to me was the process that she used seemed so eloquent and just made a lot of sense. So like I said, we go through this process of getting very relaxed, bringing up memories. And I brought up a memory that I hadn't remembered beforehand of being very young, being at my grandfather's house, being shown a picture of a small plane and being told that his business partners had died in it. So makes sense why, I would learn a program that flying's not a particularly safe thing. What was interesting is I felt this release. I felt that flying could feel differently afterwards. I was fine booking in flights, but I didn't remember the memory. And then I spoke to my mom and she confirmed that it was true. So I had a repressed memory come up, or something that I'd just forgotten, that completely explained why I was scared of flying. Resolving it seemed to remove my fear of flying. And it just all made so much sense. Because of that, I took interest in it. I found the most comprehensive course I could find at the time in the UK, and trained. And I was actually training more to help friends and family, and because I found it interesting than thinking it would be a career. I was in renewable energy at the time, and I didn't expect a career change into hypnotherapy. Then started doing sessions with friends and family, started getting recommendations. Oh, can you do my friend? Can you do my friend? And then suddenly I was in a situation that, because of the results I was getting, hypnotherapy suddenly made more sense than my real job. I was enjoying it far more and getting much more out of my days. And then I moved into the high performance. We moved to Las Vegas. I started working with a number of professional poker players. I started working with a number of UFC fighters. Saw some really great performances, had people become champions, lots of world champions in poker as well as the fighting. And then again, if you see success in one area, they recommend friends in different areas. So then I started working with Olympians. Then I started working with people in different sports. Then I started working with CEOs of companies. And it just sort of ended up in this niche of high performers around the world in different areas were being told, hey, you should work with Elliot to overcome your self-sabotage issues. And because we're seeing these results. And then my business is just basically followed down that route. And now I'm pretty much just working with high performers in different areas, from people on Wall Street to CEOs of companies. And then, as I say, athletes, gamblers, people fighting, just all sorts of different areas.
I mean, it's really interesting too. The cast of characters, we'll say, and I guess I'm part of that cast of characters.
They're quite the cast.
Yeah, exactly. And so, how did you? I mean, so you're working with celebrities. I mean, the top poker players, which is, for people who think that, oh, that's really strange. That is one of the most stressful positions you could be in, at a table of 4 or 5 men and women at a table, trying not to give away your hand by any type of subconscious movements, which other people are professionals at reading, and staying cool, calm, and collected. I mean, that is basically Olympic-based stress. And you help people with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly high level math, which most people aren't aware of. And it's very high stakes and very stressful. I mean, I've had people win literally this weekend over $1.7 million.
Wow.
These are very high stress scenarios where if you start getting in your own way, you give up so much edge to your opponents. So if you start getting anxious, if you start, the math starts to become more difficult, you start trying to gamble to win your chips back because you've been unlucky. Poker's interesting because there's variance involved. You can play your best and still lose. If you're in chess, if you play your best, you'll beat your opponent if you're better than the opponent. In poker, it's not quite like that. The worst player can win, and that causes a lot of stress. So I'm helping them understand that, working through the entitlement that happens. But then it's the same process works with everything else. So whether it's an Olympic skater, whether it's a trader on Wall Street, dealing with those moments of unfairness that come up in everyone's life. I should have won the race, but there's an issue with my ice skate, or the trade went against me, I misclicked, or my computer went down at exactly the wrong moment, which does happen to people on Wall Street. These moments happen, and it's how you recover and make the best of those moments. So it's more the case of accepting whatever is the new reality and getting back to optimal as quickly as possible. And that's the same for, as I say, every activity, every sport is just dragging yourself back to that high level of performance, even when the world doesn't seem like the fairest place.
Yeah, and that's a great point as well, because life does sometimes seem unfair. And, you're left to then say, well, then if it's unfair, and it's just left to chance, well, then why even play at all? And that's, I think, a difficult thing for many people to come to grips with, because sometimes it doesn't always go your way. But the interesting thing is that the most successful people I've ever seen is they're just in the game every day. So if you play every day, then your chances of winning go way up. And yeah, sometimes you'll lose for sure. But also, I mean, a full-time professional poker player, which I've now met a couple, you're playing 8 to 10 hours a day. Like it's your full-time job. And so if you play that much, you're going to get better, and you're going to increase your odds, of course, of winning, just like anything else.
Oh, completely. I mean, they're all skill-based things. And it's been just very interesting to see the edge that resolving mindset issues can give people in these different areas.
So one thing I'd like to know for myself as well is, how did you, so you're going from hypnotherapy with friends and family and, maybe some local people. So you grew up and lived in the UK and then moved to Las Vegas? Is that how it worked?
So I was working locally. I was still doing work online anyway. So always somewhat international in terms of my reach. My wife was offered a job as a lawyer in Las Vegas, and it just made sense. So I could work online, so there's no difference from my side. I'd had some success with just amateur golfers improving their scores. There was someone I knew in the poker world, and she had said, hey, if you can help people with stress, you could change people's lives in poker. If they're not stressed, they're going to make so much more money. And I just started working literally for free with some poker players and said, let's see what happens. They started making more money, and I became more popular. And then that grew as the business grew. And yeah, as I say, people in those industries, high performers know lots of high performers. And if you're showing results, they tell their friends, and then it spreads into so many different areas. I'm sure it's the same in your world. It's not only doctors that people in different areas, and that's really what happened. And then it spread out over a huge number of different strange activities, as I say, from Olympic sports to trading, to chess players, to video esports players, all sorts of different areas. But what was most interesting to me is the sessions are almost identical through all of these different areas. So humans are human. Nearly always it comes down to self-love and self-worth and thinking they're good enough and thinking they're deserving of success. And then as you work through these feelings of self-belief of, am I good enough? Was I loved enough? Am I good enough for my parents? As you work through these background memories that come up from childhood, you see significant changes in performance. And so far, I haven't found an activity where it's not the same themes that are showing themselves in the sessions.
Yeah, the first time I remember a professional athlete, I was growing up, and I never played golf, but I was into all sports, and so I even enjoyed watching golf on TV. And David Duval, who was a golfer way back in the day, he basically sunk into a slump for no specific reason. I mean, he was a great golfer, but he just fell off the charts. And I believe Greg Norman as well, the Shark, worked with a performance coach, they called him sports psychologist, but basically doing what we're talking about, hypnotherapy, and chess players do this all the time too, just to getting them to believe back in themselves, not change skills at all. They don't need to learn any more skills. They're already at the best of the best level. And now it's really just about mindset. And that's what I share with people as well. If you're relapsing in terms of your wellness, weight loss, anti-aging based protocols, the protocols are pretty much, they're going to work. Like, that's the thing. They're going to work, but you need to work the protocols. And a lot of people, they self-sabotage. And it's because of what you just said. They just don't feel deserving. Now, do they feel that on a conscious level? No. But at a subconscious level, sometimes we just don't believe that we deserve to be at our best weight or at our best health or have the best relationships. And people might think that I'm crazy for even saying that. But the truth is that if you go back and you look at it, you may have had or you have an overweight family, and everyone's overweight. So if you were the one to lose weight, well, then would you not feel the love because you're the one that doesn't fit in? Or same with your social circle of friends. Or, did you grow up and everyone was talking about how poor their health is, or how your health tends to decline after the age of 30? Or relationships, did you see poor relationships around you? And now you're simply repeating the same thing you saw when you were a child. And so I see this, like you just said, play out everywhere in life. And that's why doing this type of work is meant for everyone, again, in my opinion, from what I've learned. I didn't believe that maybe a year or so ago, but now I know that this is something that we need to work on.
And something just to be really clear about with the weight loss as well, because it comes up so much when I have in the past worked with weight loss clients. Sometimes your subconscious believes it's protecting you. So unfortunately, a lot of the time with significant obesity, the presenting issue of safety was trauma from abuse. So the weight became a protection from sexual abuse, a belief that if I was big enough, I wouldn't get this negative attention. Or also the belief that if you're actually putting your relationship at risk in some way by losing the weight, because you're worried, will my marriage still be the same if I lose 50 pounds? Will it put pressure on my family? Will life be different? Will people treat me differently? Does it remove an excuse to not be successful? So there's all of these different safety mechanisms your subconscious may be putting in place to basically, make those shifts. So just be aware of that oftentimes it might seem strange that, your subconscious could possibly think that being overweight is keeping you safe. But as I'm going through these sessions, these are the sorts of thoughts and feelings that come up. So what will happen if you lose this weight? Well, I'm going to feel uncomfortable. Men might be looking at me in a different way. All of these. And you start to see the program that's being created of fear around looking your best or feeling your healthiest. It's just interesting to see these themes show themselves through so many people over the years.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'd like to bring up as well, is that when you think about a certain thing that you are looking to achieve, whatever it might be, and again, any of the big five that I call, think about, or don't, just be aware. It's all about self-awareness. I always talk about that with people all the time. It's just simply allow and be self-aware. So if you think about your goal, and let's just say your goal is to overcome your autoimmune issue. When you think about yourself overcoming that autoimmune issue, what is the next thought, image, or feeling that pops into your mind or in your chest, wherever it might be, or in your gut? And that is usually an indicator, at least for me, again, not the experts in this category, of the first part, because there could be multiple layers to this, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's at least the first part to begin to unravel and see for what it is in order to achieve that. So it's like, oh, I want to achieve whatever it is. Okay, now what do you feel? Where's that tension in your body? You might just be aware of tension now. Okay, well, now what's the tension telling you? Okay, the parental judgment, the sibling judgment, the social, the, you're not deserving, whatever it might be. That's how I see it a lot of times. Would you look for something else, another indicator?
Well, I actually, with the hypnotherapy, I always start with the physical sensation like you're describing. And it doesn't matter, like I say, whether it's with weight loss and health, or if someone's feeling anxiety when making a sales call or asking out someone from the opposite sex or facing potential rejection. What is the physical sensation that shows to you to let you know that there's a stress response? For most people, it's in their stomach, their chest. Some people, it's their face, even their fists. Sometimes when people get angry, they feel heat in their fists. And then we're using that as a starting point. We start tracing back from that emotion, the physical starting point, to other times in your life you felt that same sensation. And as we bring up that same sensation, you usually get this list of memories that start showing themselves that create this narrative where it makes complete sense as to why someone would have issues in these areas. So yeah, I agree completely. Looking at and being aware of whatever physical resistance, physical sensation comes up is often a really good place to start when it comes to the unraveling and the self-development work that you need to do.
And then before someone begins to do this work, would you recommend they maybe journal for other times that they felt this sensation? Should they start to begin to explore that, or is it really better to work with someone at that point?
I would usually say if you're looking to really make the big change, start working with a professional, mainly because, like I said, the blind spot's there for almost everybody. So you can start to do some good work with journaling, but if it's financially possible for you, it will be typically much faster. If you're working with a professional, you're going to get to the results quicker, and you're not wasting your time. So if it's a financial opportunity, it's something you can sensibly afford, I would say work with a professional. If it's not something you can afford, then certainly doing journaling, working on it through meditation. There are some things you can do yourself. I mean, I have an app that you can download, Prime Mind, that you can follow through the hypnotherapy in that. But the reality is it's going to be working with someone who's a professional who can help you understand the root causes, who can show you your blind spots and help push you to the places you don't want to go. Because oftentimes the memories that are the ones that are holding you back are the uncomfortable ones you don't like thinking about. And it's very hard to go there yourself. But with a professional, they'll be able to help take you through that in a safe environment. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I think that's a good recommendation. And maybe just in the beginning, simply being aware of what those memories may be that you will need to work on could be helpful, because you probably shouldn't unravel them yourself. It might actually lead to a more negative place if you're viewing it from the point of a child, essentially, or whenever it happened. Like if you're viewing it from the point of trauma, then that can be a very challenging thing for obviously people to look at. And one thing I just want to state is, because we always state it, we are not doing any medical-based treatments here. We're not diagnosing, we're not curing, we're not treating any disease, we're not treating any trauma. What we're really talking about is helping people live their best life and performing in all areas of life is really what we're talking about. We're not doing this from a medical-based perspective. Now, having said all of that, I would love to hear why you believe, because you've worked with a lot of people now and you've worked with people in all walks of life, who, obviously I don't want you to name names, but when you look at your most successful people, why were they successful? And also vice versa. Like, what were the characteristics of people that used your hypnotherapy? Because you're doing a protocol based for each individual, but it's still a protocol. And I could say the same for health. Is like, what are the characteristics of people who get results versus the people who don't get results? I'd love to hear that.
One of the things I've seen in the very highest performers in every area of life, this is less to do with the hypnotherapy and more to do with just what I think is an incredibly useful trait, is not automatically thinking their competition is wrong. So whether it comes to, let's say, if we use the poker as an example, someone plays a hand in a different way. The very best players in the world will say, that's interesting. I wouldn't have done that. I would have done something differently. And I see the same with the CEOs of companies or even coaches, where the guys who are at the very top will typically be questioning everything that's happening around them and within the industry, and looking to improve themselves and refine themselves. And if something's really different from what they do, it's like a big red flag as to, wait a minute, is there something I'm missing here? The people who have average success are extraordinarily confident and believe that everyone else is wrong. And that's really the difference when I talk about people being world-class. But the difference between being world-class or being the very best in the world, typically the people who are the very best in the world have this system where they're looking at all of the different possibilities and questioning themselves in those moments. And it even comes down to silly things like, email marketing strategies. And it can be any different area. But I've seen that come up an awful lot. When it comes to the hypnotherapy sessions themselves and where we see the biggest impact, it's often when someone quite clearly has very high potential. And then in a first session, I'll be saying to them, okay, so what's the difference between what you do and what the person who's the best in the world does? And they'll be able to provide a very big list of all the things the best person in the world does that they're choosing not to do because they already know this information. So we know there's something in their subconscious that they're genuinely choosing not to give the 100% effort, not to give it their best shot. And that's usually ego defense, because by not giving their best effort or taking their best shot, they can always tell themselves that had I done this, I would have been the best in the world, but I was in control. I chose not to do it. So as we work through that, we can see extraordinary results because they start doing all the things they knew they should have been doing anyway, because there's no longer this internal resistance protecting their ego. And the results typically change pretty dramatically in those moments.
Yeah, it's a better way to sum up fear of success, fear of failure, is because you are protecting that ego almost in both scenarios, right? So fear of success, what happens if I'm more successful than those around me in whatever area, the weight loss, the health, the relationships, how do people view me? And that's a shot to the ego. And then it's also like, well, what if I do fail? And then how do people view me? And how do I view myself? And how you view yourself is the most important, right? Because you can begin to work through other challenges on that. But the first point you brought up, and I actually went through this podcast and I thought about you when I recorded. It was episode 1683 that I did. And it was the difference between confidence and insecurities. So a confident person exhibits these specific characteristics, and an insecure person exhibits these specific characteristics. And I really went through them side by side, this, and this. And it's really strange because the confident person has nothing to prove. Even if they need to prove something to themselves or whatever it might be, they're confident enough to say, yeah, there's still more to learn. And it's really strange because the confident person is often more successful in terms of like how most people would view that person. And the insecure person has to put up more of the walls and excuses and defenses because they really have more to protect. And really it's because they don't view themselves as successful. So I love looking through that because every time I went through an insecurity, not the confidence parts, great if you can emulate that, but I really went through it. I'm like, do I have that? Like, I'm like, okay. And then it's also like, what are the levels? Because we all have them. Right. But it's like, to what level do I do this? I remember I read one, it's like giving other people essentially their due, complimenting them, and not, even if you have kind of a one-up story, it's not having to share that story. Like I love going back and forth with people like, oh, like I had that happen to me too. But if you're trying to one up the other person, like, am I acting insecure here? Do I need to be the star of the show? So I love being able to go through that. I think they're great learning things. And that's how, again, I choose to look at life as just, it's always one-upping yourself. Nobody else. It's just kind of like one-upping yourself.
And such a nice way of viewing the world as well, that it just isn't necessary to do that. It's never necessary to bring the other people down, to make yourself the center of attention in that way. And it's, the most confident people are confident enough to say they might be wrong.
Mm-hmm. And that's hard, right?
It is hard. But as I say, that's also what I've seen with these different areas. I've worked with a lot of people who have genuinely ended up being the number one in the world of what they do. And it's just this theme that I've seen over and over again.
That's great advice. I mean, that's good to know. It's something that we can all work towards. It really is just saying, what can I learn from other people? There's other people more successful around me. And if not, so if you're lucky enough to be in that top 1% in your category of whatever it is, what people who outside of your industry or field or whatever it is that you do is successful, and that you can maybe take some of that into your own life. And that's kind of how I look at it. Once I went on this path of natural health, it wasn't really about, well, what are people doing inside of natural health? It's like, well, what's going on all outside of it that I can say, oh, what they're doing, and like, okay, great. Now we can use this too, because we need to rise above as a community to get to that next level. And that's the truth. Like something in podcasting. Well, we need more people to listen to health-based podcasts, not just this podcast, so that more people, not just 56 million or whatever it is in the United States, that actually way more people start to get into natural health. Because, okay, they might not listen to my podcast, that's okay, but that raises the whole industry. And since I'm part of the industry, well, I get to, it's that rising tide lifts all boats. I love that quote, is that we all get to be a part of that. And that's why even for hypnotherapy, some people may decide to work with you. Some might work with someone else, but now they know about this field, and the field begins to grow, and you had something to do with the growth of that field, which at the end of the day, now you're helping at a more altruistic and even higher level. And I think, again, when we look back at it, you probably feel good about that too, right? I mean, that's a nice thing. It's like, I feel good about helping the industry. It's like,
yeah, I mean, it's wonderful. It's a similar thing. I don't really believe in competition in industries like this. There are so many people that need help, and we all have only so many hours in the day. I believe that there needs to be a lot of growth in these types of, I would rather see more hypnotherapists, more coaches out there helping more people and helping them have this subconscious change, because, it makes the world a better place.
Without a doubt. And that's a theme with a lot of the people that I seek out personally as my coaches and experts, is that they are genuinely interested in helping people. This is their career. So we all have our careers, but even if it wasn't their career, even if they were completely financially independently wealthy, they didn't need anything, they'd still be doing it. That's the thing, is like, they'd still be doing it. And that's the amazing thing I think about this community in general. Then, and you're part of the natural health-based community. It's like, how can we do this without drugs? How can we do this without all of these different things? Not saying there's not a time and a place, but we try to put people first. I always say it's people before profits, not profits before people. You're allowed to make money because you should be abundantly wealthy as well. You should have that as part of it. And if you don't think that you should, then you need to work with Elliot, because you're missing abundance in that part of your life, right? It's like abundance in relationships, abundance in career and finances, abundance in your health, abundance in your body transformations, abundance in your spirituality. Like, what if I've worked with, we'll just put it this way, some quite wealthy CEOs and billionaires, and they are really great at that particular area in their life, but they let their body go in some instances, their health go, their relationships go, and their spirituality. So they were all in one area, and yes, they did unbelievably well. But at some point now in life, and you can this can happen at any point in your life, you say, okay, this is what got me to where I am today. I can help a lot of people with this wealth, of course, but let me now work on all of the things I may have let go to get to this point. Or now maybe they let it go because, again, they have subconscious blocks in all of those areas except that one, which they were the best in the world at.
And, I see that often as well, that people can get stuck into one area and they can reach these extreme levels of success. But once they do, they realize, some millions of dollars doesn't solve all of your issues. It just doesn't. There's, as you say, health issues. Relationships are a major part of everybody's life and the way that you feel and your level of happiness. I believe the altruistic side is what most people are actually driven to in terms of what will truly make them happy once they feel secure in themselves. And it was funny you said that in terms of, being happy to work. I say it all the time. If I won the lottery, I would be doing the same work that I do now. I would just be doing it for free. And I would just say to anyone, if you can find a path or a career where you can genuinely say that and say that you would want to be doing it. And I think this is especially easy if you believe that you're helping people. It makes it much easier to say that. But yeah, really go out and find something that makes you feel that way, because for me personally, it's a wonderful way of spending my days, basically.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, if you can find a career, just like you said, that you would do for free, I mean, it's the best job in the world, and that's why, for sure, I work too much. There's no doubt about that. And I balance the way that I balance that is then anytime I'm not working, I'm spending with my family. So I don't have a lot of other outside activities, but those are two things that are at the top of my list that I love. I wouldn't be me without my work, and I wouldn't be me without my family. So I need to have the both of those, and if I only have those, then I'm very, very happy as well. Now, of course, there are a few outside activities that I do, but that's where I'm also at in this stage of my life. And there's different stages of life. I don't think that I'll be at this stage forever, meaning like, of course, I'm always going to work in this field. I'm always going to love what I do, but there'll come a point in time when I feel like I've created enough of the protocols and courses and things that I can point people to in every direction. I've done my work. Now I'm going to create more video content. I'm going to write more books, but I'll feel more settled. And then, of course, then this will be the next stage, and we can look at those specific things. So, again, like I'm always someone that's kind of every 90 days, I kind of look at my life, where I'm at, all of those specific things. And having said that, I'd like to talk now a little bit more specifically about sessions, like what those sessions are like, at least with you. So,
yeah.
And again, they're probably a little bit different for different people, but maybe the format is similar, meaning, do people come into a call kind of talking about where they're at since they spoke to you last, over the last couple of weeks, over the last month, begin to work on a specific issue, go into a hypnotic-based state, relaxed. I call it more of a relaxed meditative state where my body's calm, I'm relaxed, and I'm able to better recall. Take us through that a little bit, the format as to what people would be able to expect, since this is brand new to 99% of the people listening.
So if someone's working with me for the first time, I'll typically do a 2-hour first session, which will be around a 90-minute intake, where we'll be talking through their past, the different emotions that they're struggling with, what they're looking to get from working with me over the time that they're going to be working with me. And during that, what I'm looking for is the obvious areas where we can have the most extreme growth. So the biggest sticking points, the biggest emotions. And sometimes the client thinks they're coming for one reason, and it'll become quite clear in the intake that there's actually another part of their life where they should really be putting the work in. This is where I was talking about the blind spots. And then the final half an hour of the session will be hypnotherapy on whatever we believe will have the biggest impact. So it doesn't matter what, it could be any area, but it's where the person is going to see the biggest shift in either their emotional state or their financial success. It depends what they're coming to me for. Then within the hypnotherapy, the beginning is like a guided meditation. So if anyone's used Headspace or any of the other apps, you get yourself to that very relaxed state. It's deep breathing exercises, getting yourself very, very calm. And then with meditation, you're looking to let go of the thoughts as they come in. So you get to that very relaxed state. And then as a thought comes in, with meditation, you take control and you let go of the thought. And that's mindfulness meditation. In hypnotherapy, we focus all of your attention in on one specific thought or one specific emotion. And I would say that's really the big difference. So we get to this very relaxed trance-like state. We focus in on that bodily sensation I was describing earlier. And then that's the opening through which those memories start showing themselves and coming through. So when else did you feel like this? I was 10 years old, this was happening. I was 8 years old, this was happening. I was 15, I got rejected by this girl. And as I say, it creates this narrative, this story where you can see this timeline of where this subconscious program has come from and why it's protecting you, how it's protecting you, and how it can be different if you make those changes. We then reframe those emotions and help to drain the emotion away from it by seeing it through your adult eyes, talking the child through the stressful situation, removing the color from the memories. There's all sorts of different techniques we use within that process. And then typically there's emotional events. It's not rare for people to cry during these sessions. That's quite normal. So there can be this catharsis, the emotional release. And then we move into more future pacing work. So what does life look like now that we've made those changes? So this has changed, this has changed, this has changed. And that's a typical half an hour session within the hypnotherapy. Obviously, it differs for each individual, different emotions, different memories. But as a general theme, that's what it looks like. And then a normal session would be 1 hour with me. And again, it's this sort of half an hour at the beginning where we're looking at what has changed, what hasn't changed, what big events or emotions have come up since we've last spoken. And then again, picking whatever will be most valuable for that person to do the half an hour of actual hypnotherapy work. And then oftentimes, people might be in contact with me in between if they've been sent accountability targets, things like that between the sessions. But that's sort of a general overview of what the sessions can look like and feel like for people.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm looking forward myself personally getting back into our sessions. I know it's been a couple months, but you left me, we left off in a good space. Like I was like, okay, things are good. But at the same time, that doesn't mean it's the end. For me, it's like, okay, well, now what's that next level? And so took a little time to explore, enjoy the summer. But also now I want to look forward to a brand new year. 2021's coming. And I want to say, well, what can we explore for 2021? And, here are the things that I'm looking to specifically achieve. Here's the balance that I'm looking to create. Because some of it for me, for sure, is balance. And the nice thing is this, I'll tell you, there's no bad sessions with you because you wake up from your trance feeling like you just took a nap. So for me, it's like, I have tons of energy right now. And I put at the end of my day, because I don't want to go back to work after that. I feel really good. So I usually get a workout in after that. And it's just like, that's a good night with my kids, a good night with my family, because I'm just pretty chill, pretty relaxed. So, and I think that's one of the fringe benefits right there. I'd love to talk with people too, just to let them know. I don't know. Maybe I would say the minimum amount of sessions you should probably do is 6. And then there's no limit to the upper amount, because just because you go through an event or memory doesn't mean that you can rewrite it in one session. It depends on, I think, the intensity of that event. Trauma is just one word for it, but the intensity, the vividness of that event. And I'll tell you, I'm someone that studied neurolinguistic programming for many years. And even as you were taking me through these specific exercises, I'll call them, I knew that you were using NLP, but at the same time, I would never have been able to do that myself. And the way that you did it seemed much more natural, that as I was going through it, I'm like, oh, this is how it's supposed to work. This makes sense now, because I couldn't do it on my own, because it's me telling me to do it. And there's like this weird like ego and third party like taking place, or I should say not third party, it's all inclusive in me. So by having a third party take you through it, whether it be using your app, which we'll talk about in a moment, or working with yourself or someone like you, that I think your defenses are down. When it's with yourself, the defenses are up, because you're trying to protect you. So I found it really helpful, and I was able to see that work done in real life. Now, I know NLP sometimes gets a bad name. It's called neurolinguistic programming. But the reason why I first read about it is because I started to get into the mental side of natural health. And I read about, Richard Bandler, I read about all the different people behind this part of it for PTSD. Because some of the great work that was done with NLP was actually done with PTSD in the very beginning. And the amount of success stories they have is pretty incredible. That and addictions. I've seen this work really well, hypnotherapy, for smoking and other addictions as well. I know that's not what you do, but a lot of people use it, and again, quite successfully, sometimes even just one session. Then they'll do follow-ups if there's a little break. So that's just to say that because that's a pretty powerful addiction, smoking. That's people think it's just physical. Yes, it's physical after a while, but it's also mental. Like, why are you smoking in the first place? So again, this has no bounds. We're talking about it in specific arenas, but it's all the same. It's what's going on behind the mind. What would you say though is the right amount of sessions to work through specific things? Again, I don't know that there is a right answer, but what's the minimum at least?
I would like to say that most people will notice some change after even the first session. So that's relatively normal. I'm not saying it's going to have changed your life completely. It won't have resolved the issue completely, clearly. But typically after a first session, someone will say something is different. Mm-hmm. And that will usually give you a good idea of where you are with hypnotherapy, if it is for you. And sort of how interesting it is for you to then move forward to keep refining this. So typically, I was very lucky with the flight issue that it got resolved in the way that it did in one session. But usually what we're looking to do is take something that's a response. So the response to someone's spider fear is a 9 or a 10. And then after a session, we're looking at it's at a 6 or a 7. And then after a session, it's at a 4 or a 5. And it's very manageable. They don't need to worry about it past that point. But they might continue to work on it, or they might continue working on other areas. In the sort of clients that I'm working with, oftentimes they'll come to me with a subconscious block that's causing a significant issue in their life. So as I say, they want to be number one in the world or whatever it might be. And we might work through the big issues that resolve this subconscious block. But then that usually causes growth in their career or in their relationships or in their life. And then as you get the growth, there's a new comfort zone to step out of. And oftentimes clients will work with me quite a substantial amount of time, because every time they see this big improvement in their life, they reach a new comfort zone, and there's a new comfort zone that they want to then break through. So it really comes down to, there's no real perfect number of sessions outside of where are you comfortable feeling that you've done the work that you want to do. Because every time you do that work, your life will improve. There'll be a new level for you to step through, and it's your decision as to whether you want to step through that level or not. But when it comes from, if you're suffering from chronic obesity and you want to work on your mindset around weight loss, you might have a target in your mind. Okay, when I reach this weight, I'm quite comfortable saying this has been a success. But typically, I usually work with people for at least 10 sessions personally, because of the sort of work I do, and it's performance-based. A lot of hypnotherapists you might work with from more normal issues like phobias and things, 3 to 5 sessions, you should notice very substantial change. But again, I see this more as a case of continually refining to move forward and progress in my life. So I see it for me personally. As I say, I'm very sold on the subject. It's my career. I work with someone personally, and I see it as something where I want to continue doing this pretty much indefinitely, because I want there to always be a comfort zone that I'm looking to push into. And that's the way I view it personally.
A great motivator that I look up to, someone named Les Brown, essentially said that always work towards a goal, even if that goal doesn't eventually come true, or you decide that that's not a goal that you want anymore. It's what you're doing in the process as a person in order to achieve that goal that allows you to achieve that goal or any goal in the future anyway. So simply by working hard on yourself, bettering yourself, it opens up new opportunities in life. It really does. And I think that the 10 sessions is probably right, because you want to end saying like, wow, that was something. And it's because when you fix one thing, I think I'll probably fix it. Rewire, I think, is probably a better way of, because I don't like to think of people as broken, but there's some rewiring that needs to take place for sure in that subconscious. But then that says, oh yeah, maybe there's this other thing too. And you kind of like work and chip away. And it's the same for my field with health. It's like, yeah, okay, well, now that my digestive issues are fixed, maybe I can fix the whole issue with waking at 2:30 in the morning now. Oh, okay, I fixed that. Now, what about the occasional headache I get every couple of weeks? And so then you can kind of like chip away at the other things too. Next thing you know, you're in a place that you didn't know existed. So for me, that's where I see a big benefit. And of course, always choosing a specific goal, just like you said, because you want to be able to keep score. So, hey, I know this is working if this happens. And then you're able to justify it, I think, just like most people, easily that way. One more question that I wanted to ask before we get into the specifics is, when someone does work with you specifically, what should they expect to experience the next couple days after? And I was trying to like word that correctly in my head. And that's because I don't want people to think that this is going to turn their life upside down. However, you can do some pretty powerful work that resets your thermostat. And you actually said to me one time, I think it was only one time specifically, you said, hey, that was a big session. You might be feeling a little off. the next day or so. I'd love for you to be able to explain that to people so that, let's say they're working with someone else or doing some work on their own, and they do feel something the next day and they don't have that person to ask. Well, explain a little bit more, since I don't think I fully understand it either, but it's like this rewiring process taking place. So I'd love for you to be able to explain that.
So what tends to happen is when we hit with very emotional sessions, so sort of a keystone of someone's mental programming has been upturned. And effectively, what we're doing is showing them that a new way of life is possible, something that they might have thought, a way they define themselves for their entire life. I'm an anxious person. And then they start to realize that they're an anxious person because of something that happened when they were 8 and they no longer need to be. That's a huge amount of information to process. And what I've noticed is on the significantly emotional sessions, the person usually feels pretty good just after the session because they feel the good work that they've done. But it's not rare at all. I would say 50 to 60% of the time after those sessions, the next day, they're just feeling a bit off. So they might be grumpier with their spouse. They might feel a bit discombobulated, as if, things are a bit different. They don't know why, like there's an energy drain going on. And what I believe that to be, because I don't really think anyone's really 100% sure on exactly what's going on with all of these processes, is the subconscious is trying to basically reconfigure the new information.
Yeah.
And typically when I expect to see the bigger changes, so the results are around 3 or 4 days after the session, is when people will generally start to see the changes in their life that we were aiming for. And those changes are often things that were difficult before feeling easier than you believe they should do. So an example, something that comes up with, a lot of clients is they struggle getting their taxes done. This is normal. A lot of people have a lot of resistance over paying their taxes. And we'll do a session. Again, a few days later, I'll get a text message and be like, Elliot, I just sat down, I did all of my taxes and it felt fine. It didn't feel like anything. And it was just something that historically has been difficult, was just easy to do. Or they can have the call with their member of staff that usually triggers them and they get angry, and they dealt with their member of staff fine, or they went through a redundancy process and they didn't have the same emotional lows that they would normally go through. So what we're looking for are these shifts of something that was a resistance, was difficult, suddenly feeling natural, normal, and easy. And that's the sort of shift that I like to see from the sessions. And when things are easier, they happen. When those things happen, you get the much higher performance and better quality of life.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And just for me personally, I would say that I almost felt I just wasn't ready. I needed a day not to commit to any heavy things. Like it was just more of a more relaxed day the next day, where my mind, I'm a daydreamer in the first place, but my mind was daydreaming a lot more. I was just relaxed. That's it. And just kind of trying to process things. So for me, I did the work, but it was just a lighter day. And I think it is a rewiring. I really believe that. I mean, the brain is essentially plastic, so when we talk about neuroplasticity, it's neurons connected to neurons. Well, new connections are being made. And it's almost like, you're basically asleep. You're dreaming. You're in this lucid state where new connections are being made. And that very well may take hours or days, or I don't think that we truly know, but I do believe that that is exactly what's going on, because now I can look at certain events, like being a 17-year-old kid who none of the best doctors in the world know any idea of what's going on with them, telling them that there's no cure because we can't figure it out. We'll have to wait and see if it gets worse. That I can look at that and have no real emotion anymore. There's no pain. It's just like, good. That was part of my story. I'm almost happy that it happened now, because I get to sit here and chat with people like you. Like there's no way that any of this wouldn't happen. I mean, I would have been on the same path as many of my other college buddies and gone into finance and moved to New York and done all of those things. But I knew that wasn't my path. I knew right away, because this happened to me senior in high school. So I don't think that everyone will be appreciative necessarily of the events that happen to them in their life, but they'll be able to look at them from a third party outside point of view and look at them as something and just say, listen, this has now made me who I am today. And I'm happy with that. And I think that's the best thing that can come for all of us.
And a way to sort of be aware if you're carrying these sorts of different issues. If you think back to your school days, and you think back to the kid that bullied you, because an awful lot of people have been bullied by another kid. It's a normal thing. If when you do that, you feel physically sick or you feel an emotional pressure, you're probably carrying something that's showing up in different areas of your life. If you can think back to those moments of being bullied in childhood and see it as just like, oh, it doesn't matter, like these things happened, and there's no physical response to it, then those things are clear. But if you're feeling a physical response to thinking back on memories, typically that's then showing in some behavioral action to keep you safe. And that's just a sign of that sort of emotional program that's still there.
That's a great point. The physical reaction or feelings to an event, which essentially is not happening. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, yet it does, because we relive it over and over. And that's why it should no longer exist, because it happened in the past, yet we're making it present every time that we relive it, we think about it. So that's one of the best really ways to talk about the work that you do, is that you get to stop reliving that event. That's the amazing thing. And you get to then live events that you want to happen in the future as if they're happening right now. And I guess that's a really interesting way to look at it.
And that opens up the potential for those things to happen. So once you can visualize something, you have a much greater chance of turning that into a reality. And the mind doesn't know the difference between vivid visualization and reality. So, if you're an athlete looking to get gold medals, so long as you've visualized that internally enough, when it comes to that moment, your subconscious will believe it is possible for you to win. And it's all about creating enough subconscious belief that you deserve it, that you won't sabotage it in the high pressure moment. Because if you don't believe it's possible and you don't believe that you deserve it, it is very easy to find a way of sabotaging absolutely anything in your life, from your health to your relationships to your financial situation. You need to believe you deserve it, and future pacing is a way of doing that.
And that's great, because that's what it should get to for everyone. You've resolved everything that you can at least think of and that you feel a physical reaction to, and then it's towards, okay, what is it now? I'm open to all possibilities, because again, I really have learned from so many people in the past. Many of them, of course, I will never get to meet. One of those people is Jim Rohn. And he basically said this, he said, listen, stop working on being successful. Don't work on that anymore. Work on becoming a successful person. Work on the type of person where success is attracted to you. Because a lot of people say, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. Yes, okay, there are certain tasks that you need to do. But the truth is, and it really goes back to deserving, if you don't actually believe you are deserving, or that you are the type of person who can achieve that, you will never achieve it, because you have to already believe that you can receive it in order to actually get that thing.
And I really love that idea around relationships as well. If someone's single and they're looking for a partner, I think the process is writing out what you want that partner to have, the different attributes, and then write out what attributes you would need to attract someone who was that good, and start working on those. And if you start working on yourself in all of those areas, you'll probably find yourself in the different places where that partner that you want would hang out, and you'll be the sort of person that they'll actually want to talk to. These sorts of techniques, it's because you're doing the things that you believe that type of partner will want, you'll be open to finding that type of partner, because you'll believe that you deserve it, because you're putting all the effort in, and it just becomes a natural part of that journey that you're following.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's a great point. And that you can use that for anything you want. What would you then have to embody for you to achieve that thing? So that's fantastic. So let's get into now, how can people access the app that you've created? And then let's get into what would the process be of working with yourself, or again, someone like you, someone on your team, or a recommendation that you might have for everyone, because there's obviously an investment. And if you're at that level though, where you feel that there's something that you want to achieve, like this is something that you want to be great at, you want to overcome, then this is certainly that working with yourself or someone like you it's now the time. It really is. It's now the time to get started. But if you're looking to just explore what this is all about, I'd say start with the app. And so let's talk about that.
So the app's called Primed Mind. You can download it on Google Play or on Apple. And you can try it for free. So I think there's around 40 hypnotherapy audios in different areas of life that you can work through for free. And then there's an upgrade you can pay for. And I think it ends up being around 250 audios set up in different courses. So things like confidence, anxiety, health and fitness, sleep, as well as things to set you up for the day, to deal with high pressure situations, those sorts of things. So it's a good introduction to hypnotherapy. So you learn about that trance process, getting yourself very relaxed, using your mind to visualize and create that change. But be aware, the app is suggestion hypnotherapy because it's me talking to you and helping you try and make changes in your mind, but we can't get into the deep memories. So it will make you feel good in the moment. It will improve your week. But the deep change is typically from the sessions, the more regression-based sessions that I was describing, where we're actually hunting out the issues. So you use the app to help you get to sleep, to improve your day, to increase your confidence. But if you know that there's a subconscious like self-sabotage that keeps showing itself to you, then that's when I would say you want to be working with a specialist, a therapist, on resolving those subconscious issues. In terms of working with myself, if you basically do the maths and it's costing you substantial money, the self-sabotage in your life. So a number of people come to me and they'll say, hey, I know this is costing me more than 6 figures a year because I'm repeating this behavior. I keep bringing myself back to this level. Then it's definitely worth reaching out to me to work with me. If that's not the case, but there's big substantial change that you want to make, then I would say, I have a number of hypnotherapists that I've trained who make sense for everybody. And you can reach out and we can put you in touch with them. I've just got my website's elliotrowe.com and you can fill out an application form. And from the application form, we'll know which direction to send you in as to who you should be working with. But definitely the starting point, as I say, Primed Mind, it is just free to download. So download, try it and see if you like it. And if nothing else, it will give you a good context for this conversation as to what we've been talking about in terms of the guided meditation and then these visualizations and the sort of impact they can have. Almost everyone has a phone. So if you want to test it for free, just click the button.
That's great. And even between sessions, or to start your day, end your day. That's why. So I always talk about it. The first thing that I do in the morning is I have my morning routine. I have all my different anchors. And every morning I'm listening to something motivating, and Prime Mind for sure is one of those. So you do things to keep yourself motivated. And also it's very important, the first thing that you do when you wake up and the last thing you do before bed. So putting some great, what's the best way? So not motivation, but the right thoughts in your mind to reprogram that subconscious mind is the way to go. So you're going to be going into a theta-based state. You're going to be getting into a sleepy-based state, a suggestive-based state. Then you listen to this and it allows that to sink in that much deeper. Plus, the way that change is really made is through repetition for many of us. And so this is also very helpful. So I definitely recommend the app. I have the app on my phone. Of course, I recommend working with Elliot or any of his partners, but Elliot will be the one to decide kind of who's best and who fits best with who. And I can't thank you enough for being on the show here today. Where can people connect with you on social media?
So on Instagram, it's Elliot Rowe, at Elliot Rowe. And Twitter, I think it's at Elliot Rowe1 on Twitter. And then, as I say, the best place is elliotrowe.com for the website and all of the information's there.
Excellent. Elliot, any parting words you'd like to give to our community?
Yeah, I think the thing I would like to say is please be aware this change is possible. I've seen so many people who come to me and they'll sort of believe 100% that they are an overweight person or an anxious person or a person who can't be successful or who just is terrible in relationships. I'm truly under the belief that these are learned programs from childhood that can be worked through and resolved. And like I say, whether you work with me, one of my colleagues, or someone else in the industry, please, if you feel you're stuck, at least give this a try. Something along this line to see if you can free yourself, because I've just seen it so many times that people's lives can change dramatically. And the narrative of I'm stuck here, it is just a narrative. It's just a belief that it can be shifted and changed and your life can get an awful lot better.
Thank you again so much for joining us here today. Really appreciate you and all the information that you've shared. Take care.
Thanks so much for having me.
Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests, or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.